Hi, I'm Susan Cook. My presentation is over Christina Rossetti. The first portion is about her life, the writer's life. Christina Georgina Rossetti was born in London on December 5, 1830, to Gabrielle and Francis Rossetti. She was the youngest of 4 children. Her siblings were Maria Francesca, Dante Gabriel, and William Michael. Christina's father was an Italian, and he was exiled from Italy for expressing his liberal opinions and settled in England in 1824. In 1826, Gabriel married Frances Polidori, a girl who was 17 years younger than him. In 1831, Gabrielle was appointed professor of Italian at King's College. Their mother, Frances, educated the children at home. Frances was the daughter of Gaetano Polidori, who was also Italian, and Anna Maria Pierce, an Englishwoman. It was said that Christina inherited her good looks from the Polidori side of the family. The Polidori home was at Homer Green in Buckinghamshire, which was 30 miles from London. Christina spent many holidays and happy times there. She learned her love of flowers, animals, and insects while spending time there. In educating the children, Frances encouraged them to read and learn several different languages. She was a good storyteller and read to the children a lot while they were young. She restricted her readings to John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. Christina liked this. Novels with a strong moral bias, which Christina did not care for very much at first, and the Bible. Christina's mother had said that she loved intellect and hoped that her husband and children had intellect. Later on, she was heard saying that she could do with a little less intellect and a little more common sense. Of the 4 children, Christina was rated as the less intellectual in her childhood. All 4 children shared a love of reading, writing, drawing, and painting. Although Christina was the youngest, she was the first to achieve public recognition as a writer. Christina's mother and older sister Maria were devout Anglo-Catholics. Christina shared their strong religious faith. All 4 children attended church with Frances, and all 4 were baptized in the Church of England as well. In 1843, Gabriel had fallen ill and was going blind. He had to give up his job as a teacher and ultimately dies in 1854. The responsibility fell on Frances to support the family. Frances opened a day school, taking in students and teaching them. Christina was ill a great deal from 1843 to 1852. At first they thought she had angina, and then again thought she had tuberculosis. Christina helped her mother when her illness allowed. Christina had 2 marriage proposals throughout her life. In 1848, she was engaged to James Collinson. She refused his marriage proposal again in 1850. Her strong religious beliefs halted the marriage. Collinson was Roman Catholic. Rossetti was of the Tractarian party of the Church of England. Christina fell in love with Charles Bagot Cayley. Cayley proposed marriage in 1866. She rejected him solely on religious beliefs. He had been brought up in the Church of England, but was no longer a strict believing Christian. In 1871, Christina became very ill with Graves' disease. She became a recluse. She was very depressed. Christina died on December 29, 1894. The next section is her body of work. Christina's writings included poetry, prose, and letters. In 1842, when Christina was 11 years old, she wrote her first poem that was dedicated to her mother. The poem was called Verses and was privately printed by her grandfather, Gaetano Polidori, in 1847. In 1862, Goblin Market and Other Poems was published. This piece was well received by reviewers and the public. Victorians termed her a lion. She was invited to meet other literary greats, but was too shy, and her religion taught her to shun praise. 1870, Commonplace and Other Short Stories was published. In 1872, Sing Song, a nursery rhyme book. The name of the book suggests these poems are for small children. Many of them are not. They are more directed to older children and adults. The reader is aware of the adult point of view and is expected to make children understand their meanings. 1874, published Annus Domini, a prayer for each day of the year. This is a devotional story and does include a prayer for each day. 1875, Goblin Market, The Prince's Progress and Other Poems. This was a first collected edition. 1879, Seek and Find, a double series of short studies of the Benedicti. 1881, A Pageant and Other Poems. Called to be Saints, the Minor Festivals devotionally studied. This piece was warmly received, but not as popular as some of her earlier poems. 1883, Letter and Spirit, Notes on the Commandments. 1885, Time Flies, a Reading Diary. 1890, Poems, New and Enlarged Edition. This is the second collected edition. 1892, The Face of the Deep, a devotional commentary on the Apocalypse. It was an immediate success. This was the last published new piece before Christina died in 1894. 1893, Verses, a collection of poems reprinted from Called to be Saints, Time Flies, and The Face of the Deep. 1896, New Poems, hitherto unpublished or uncollected. 1897, Maud, a Story for Girls. 1904, The Poetical Works of Christina Georgina Rossetti with Memoirs and Notes. Next, artistic interest and inspirations. Most of Christina Rossetti's work was influenced by her religious beliefs and pressures placed upon Victorian women. Most important to her was the Bible. She spent her entire lifetime studying and writing about it. She was particularly interested in the books of the Old Testament that concentrated on God's kingdom of love and peace and prophecy for those with faith in God. The New Testament, she concentrated on Jesus' promise of eternal life. She was also consumed with her vision of heaven and the differences between good and evil. Her reading of Dante had a significant influence on her. She published 2 short articles about him. What she got from him was an urging to the reader to see 2 worlds. One as an imperfect world filled with sorrow and corruption, and another as a perfect world filled with beauty, peace, and love. Rossetti was born into an artistic family. Her father was an Italian professor, and her mother was a well-read and experienced teacher. Her sister Maria was a published author, and her 2 brothers, Dante Gabriel and William Michael, were active in literary circles. This was a very tight-knit and happy family, not without problems and illnesses, but they were all close and loved one another. Her mother, Frances, was the pillar of their family. Christina, her siblings, and her father all acknowledged Frances as their guiding light. Christina was the closest to her mother of all the children, referring to her as a saint. The children led secluded lives. They rarely got to play with other children growing up. They kept themselves entertained by reading, drawing, keeping scrapbooks, and publishing family magazines. They hardly ever went outside of London except to visit her maternal grandparents' home. Christina loved to roam the grounds at their home. These times helped her to appreciate nature and small animals. She enjoyed sketching exotic animals at the London Zoological Gardens. Perhaps this was an inspiration to the goblins in the poem The Goblin Market, and also the two close sisters might come from her own family life. More themes are unhappy love, renunciation, death, and spiritual needs. Rossetti turned down 3 marriage proposals in her lifetime from 2 different men because of her strong religious beliefs. Her poems about love gave a sense of sadness and regret. Christina's brothers, other London painters, and intelligent men formed the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood in 1848. She took part in discussions and was a model for some of their most important paintings. She was not a world traveler, but was able to travel abroad twice. She was able to visit Italy, from where her father was from. She wrote some Italian poems, but the reader was able to see her love of Italy in her English work. And lastly, Maud was written sometime between 1848 and 1850. The story was not